Welcome to another exciting business studies class. Today we'll be looking at the factors of production. The factors of production. In one of our videos, we looked at the topic production, in which we defined production, we identified the types of production. So I will implore you to please pick up the video and watch, because this is like a continuity of that video on production. So by the end of today's class, you should be able to explain the meaning of the term factors of production, identify the factors of production, then discuss the importance of each factor of production, the importance or the characteristics of each factor of production. So what do we mean by the term factors of production? Remember, we defined production as the creation of goods and services. So what are the factors of production? They are those activities that make production possible. They are those activities that make production take place. We can also refer to them as the inputs, the activities, the things put together for production to take place. They are inputs. Without these activities coming together, production is practically impossible. And what are these factors of production? There are 4 in number. So we move to the identification of the factors of production. The 4 factors of production are land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. Land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. So we'll be taking each factor of production. We'll look at the definition and the importance or characteristics of each factor. So we start by looking at land as a factor of production. Land, as we all know, is a natural thing. That is, it is created by God. Land is given to us by God. Land is provided by nature. But to acquire land, you know, it's not free of charge. So how can we describe land? Land can be described as something provided by nature that consists of all natural resources, either on the soil or in water. Land consists of all natural resources, either found in the soil or in water. Like I said, it's given to us by God freely. So we refer to land as a free gift of nature. Land has its own economic value, and that's the reason why practically every activity carried out by man is carried out on land. Now take note of this. For every factor of production we'll be looking at, there is a reward. So the reward for land is rent. The reward for land is rent. Why is the reward for land rent? It's assumed that land is not owned by anyone. So in as much as you have purchased acres of land, you have invested millions acquiring land, the thing is that the land does not belong to you. So it's as if we are renting it we're only paying for rent, because the land does not belong to us. It's given to us by God. So let's look at the characteristics of land. There are some things that can be used to describe land. Characteristics of land. Number 1, land is considered to be a free gift of nature. Like I said, it's given to us freely by God. It's a natural resource. And land consists of all materials or all resources used by humans. Every activity carried out by human is carried out on land because it's given to us freely by God. Another characteristic of land is is used for the erection of buildings, offices, farming, and so many other activities. Just like I said, every activity carried out by man is carried out on land. So land is virtually useful for everything. It's useful for farming, it's useful for fishing, it's useful for mining, it's useful for oil drilling, it's useful for lumbering, it's useful for every activity carried out by man. It's on land we build our houses, offices, all other facilities like roads, bridges, everything is constructed on land. Another major characteristic of land is immobile. That is, land is fixed. It cannot be moved from one place to another. Land is immobile. It cannot be moved. This is the only factor of production that is immobile, that cannot be moved. It is fixed. Wherever you go to, you will still find land there. So land is fixed. Another characteristic of land is it contains all natural resources used for production. I mentioned this while introducing land as a factor of production. I said it contains all raw materials. Remember in our video on production, we said for production to take place, raw materials are needed. And these raw materials are created, they are gotten from natural things given to us by God. And all these natural things are found on land. So which means that for anything to be produced, land must definitely be involved. Another characteristic of land is the price of land varies from one place to another. The price of land in your village is not the same with the price of land in Port Harcourt or Lagos or Abuja. Why? Because of the economic value of such a place. Inasmuch as it is still the same land, the same soil, but because of the different economic activities carried out in such places, it makes the price of land to vary. Then the last characteristic of land here says the reward for land is rent. Like I said, for every factor of production, there is a reward. So the reward for land is rent. I see my students asking me, every time they ask me, Ma, why is land? Why is rent the reward for land? And I always tell them that land is given to us by God. So in as much as you've acquired acres of land, automatically the land still does not belong to you. It's assumed that you are renting it from God. So the reward for land is rent. The next factor of production is labor. For production to take place, the effort of man is needed. From the beginning of production to the end of production, the effort of man, the strength of man is needed. And that is what labor is all about. So labor refers to the human effort, whether of body or of the mind, directed to the production of wealth. Just like I said, production cannot take place without the assistance or the strength of a human. So this assistance, this human effort is either gotten from the body or from the mind. That is, you can either use your physical strength or your mental strength, and you can also apply the two. That's the reason why we have the skilled labor and the unskilled labor. The unskilled labor are people that use basically their physical strength to work. They virtually don't need mental strength, like a cleaner, like a gardener, a security man. They do not really need their mental health to work. But for someone who is a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, a pharmacist, an architect, they need both their physical and basically their mental health. And that is what labor gives us. It gives us the effort of man for production to, it provides the effort of man for production to take place. And the reward for labor is wages and salaries. Even the Bible says a laborer is worthy of its wages. So once you work, you're expected to either get your wages or your salary. What's the difference between wages and salaries? Wages are paid daily or weekly, while salaries are paid monthly. So let's look at the characteristics of labor. Number one, like I said, labor is the effort of man in production. And I also told you that these efforts can either be given physically or mentally. And also both can be used. If, for example, now there is a factory where biscuits are produced, both physical and mental effort is needed. Or a teacher that works in the school, you need both your physical strength and your mental strength to be able to impact into the lives of the students. And that is what labor gives. Labor costs money. Why does it cost money? If someone works for you, definitely you have to pay such a person. So labor is not free. It's not a free gift of nature like land. Labor costs money. Labor is specialized. You see some people, they work as teachers, some work as doctors, some work as nurses, some work as architects, some work as carpenters, some work as cooks. Labor is specialized. It's not a one-way thing. You even have for example, if there is a factory where they bake bread, there are different stages of production, from getting the materials needed, mixing it into a dough, taking it to the oven, packaging it, selling. All these are the different stages of the production involved. And these stages are not carried out by the same set of people. They are carried out by different sets of people. Some people are specialists in mixing the dough. Some are specialized in baking it in the oven. Some are specialized in packaging it. Some are specialized in marketing. So labor is specialized. Just the way in the education sector, you have a teacher teaching mathematics, different from the teacher that teaches English, different from the teacher that teaches business studies. So labor is specialized. Another important characteristic of labor is mobile. Unlike land that we said it's immobile, labor moves. Labor is not fixed. Labor moves from one place to another, from one point to another, from one stage of production to another. Labor is not fixed. Labor is mobile. Another characteristic of labor is labor varies from one industry to another. Why is this so? Different industries carry out different production activities. So labor varies in such a place. The same laborers, you can't find the same laborers in the school also in the hospital. They are not the same. Why? They do not carry out the same production process or the same production activity. So labor varies from one industry to another. Another important characteristic of labor has feelings. Labor is moved by feelings. As an employer, if you do not take care of your workers well, because the labor here, they are the workers. They are people that make the production possible. There are people that, just as in the when we learned production as a topic, we looked at the transformation. The people that are involved in the transformation, when you don't make them happy, the people that make your production activity possible, when you do not make them happy, automatically it will affect them. When you make your laborers happy, they show it in their work. When you also do not make them happy, maybe you do not pay them well, or you don't pay them as at when due, they will also show it in their production activity. So labor is moved by feelings. The last reward for labor, the last characteristic of labor says the reward for labor is wages and salaries. I've mentioned this, that a laborer must be paid either wages or salaries. As a worker, you deserve your benefit. Your benefits can either be paid as wages or as salaries. I've already explained the difference between the two. So we move to the next factor of production, which is capital. For production to take place, land has been gotten, the human factor has been provided. Another basic thing we need is money. No trading activity, no production can take place without money involved. From the beginning to the end of the production stage, money must be used. Money is needed. So capital consists of the money, the properties, the machines, the equipment that are used to carry out the production activity. So capital here is not only about money. In the factory, there are properties used, there are machines, there are equipment that are used to carry out your production activity. Remember, all these things are also bought with money. So bringing them together is referred to as capital. Accumulating all these things together, they are referred to as the wealth of the industry or the wealth of the factory. So capital brings together both the money, the machines, the properties, the equipment used to carry out the production activity. And before any business can start, even before you start getting raw materials, money must be made available. So you can also refer to capital as the money used to start and run a business. The money used to start and run a business. This question is mostly asked in exams. The amount of money needed to start and run a business is referred to as dash. It's referred to as capital. Capital is invested into business to produce or to make more money, which we can also refer to as wealth. The reward for capital is interest. Why is this so? Once you put money in business, it's expected that such a money should keep yielding more money for you on a daily, weekly, monthly, and also yearly basis. So when you invest capital into a business, it's expected to generate what? More money for you, which we refer to as interest. If, for example, you start a business with 100,000 naira this month, next month, your capital is supposed to have increased to a certain level. So the additional amount you have on top of your capital is referred to as interest, which is gotten from the capital invested. What are the characteristics of capital? Number one, capital is man-made. Money is man-made. Properties are man-made. Equipment are man-made. They are all what? Made by man. Then capital as money is difficult to come by. Capital, money is difficult to come by. If it's not difficult to come by, everybody will be rich. But because it's difficult to come by, you need to work for it to do what? To acquire it. It's not free like land. Then capital attracts investors to the business. Nobody wants to invest their money in a business that does not have a solid capital base. So investors are attracted to companies that have capital so that they can feel safe that their money will do what? Generate more money for them. So capital attracts investors to the business. The more capital you get, the more people are ready to do what? Invest into your business. Capital also helps in the execution of all other factors of production. What do we mean by this? Capital helps in acquiring of land, of course, the money you pay to acquire land and even to build on the land is gotten from, is your capital. Also, your laborers, remember, they are paid either wages or salaries, which means you need capital. So capital is needed for the execution of the other factors of production. To get your raw materials, to change the raw materials, to distribute the goods, capital is needed. Money is needed. Machines are needed. Equipment are needed. Then lastly, I've made mention of this. I said capital as a factor of production has what? Interest as its reward. The reward for capital is interest. Remember I said the reward for land is what? Rent. The reward for labor is wages and salaries. Then the reward for capital is interest. I'm repeating this because it's asked in almost every exam. The reward for each factor of production. The fourth factor of production, which is the last factor of production, is called the entrepreneur. And this entrepreneur, they are the controller, or the entrepreneur is the controller of the other factors of production. This factor of production, which is referred to as entrepreneur, is the fourth factor of production, which is concerned with the direction and control of production. They are the one in charge of the production from stage 1, which is getting of raw materials, to the last stage of production. They decide on what to produce and how to produce. In fact, the entrepreneurs, they are the business owners, the owners of the business. They are the ones who decided, they took up the initiative to do what? To start up a business, decided what to produce, and also made plans on how the production activities would be. They direct and control production. Then I also say that this factor of production controls the other factor of production. They control the use of land. They are the ones that control labor. They decide what the laborers will do. They decide on capital. They are the ones that bring in the money, the equipment, the facilities used for production. And the reward for an entrepreneur, remember I said the entrepreneur is the business owner, the person who takes up the initiative to start up a production process. So the reward for an entrepreneur is profit. Why is this so? The main motive of setting up a business is to make profit, not to make money, to make profit. The term used is profit. So you can see on the screen we have some notable Nigerian entrepreneurs. We have the likes of Aliko Dangote as the richest African entrepreneur. We have Mike Adenuga. Aliko Dangote has a company named Dangote Group of Companies. They are into production of cement, floors, and so many other things. We have Mike Adenuga, also another notable entrepreneur in Nigeria, is the owner of Globacom. We also have Femi Otedola, the owner of one of the notable oil and gas industries in Nigeria. Then we have another one here, Folorunsho Alakija. We have so many of them. They've succeeded in the business world and they are referred to as entrepreneurs. They are all business owners. What are the characteristics of entrepreneurs? Number one, the entrepreneur brings the capital. It says the duty of the entrepreneur. Remember, they are the owners. The entrepreneur is the owner of the business. So he brings the capital. He brings the money, brings the machines, brings the properties, brings everything needed for the production to take place. Entrepreneurs are also referred to as risk bearers. Business is a risk. Why is it a risk? It's uncertain. You are not sure from the beginning, you are not sure if you are going to succeed. So business is a risk. You can lose and you can also gain. So entrepreneurs are referred to as risk bearer. It is a risk for you to put your money in something that you don't even know the end result of it. So they are referred to as risk bearers. Then they also determine the direction and the control of production. They direct every production process. They also control every production process. They are the ones to acquire the land. They decide what to use the land for. They decide the activities to be carried out on the land. They decide the laborers, what the laborers should do, how much each laborer is worthy of. They direct and control every stage of production. Then they also determine what to produce and how to produce. It is the duty of the entrepreneur. In fact, this is done even before starting the production process. You decide, this is what I want to produce. I want to produce bread. I want to produce biscuits. I want to produce noodles. I want to produce this. I want to produce that. They decide on what to produce, and they also set up procedures on how the production is going to take place. So we say they determine two things: what to produce and how to produce. Then, lastly, the reward for an entrepreneur is profit. I've explained this, said the reason why it's so is because the purpose of setting up a business is to get what? Profit. Remember, the entrepreneur, they control every other factor of production. They control land, labor, and capital. Let's quickly look at the importance of these factors of production. We have looked at them, but let's just take a summary of what we have looked at. What are the importance of these 4 factors of production that we have mentioned? Number 1, they make production of goods and services possible. The contribution of land, labor, capital, entrepreneur make the production of goods and services possible. These 4 activities come together to make production possible. Land provides the location and the raw materials for our products. Every production activity is carried out on land. And also the raw materials used for these products to be produced, they are all gotten from land. So land is very, very important. Labor also has its own importance. It applies both its mental and physical strength or effort to do what? To harness these materials, to make the production of these goods and services possible. And also without capital, which is in charge of the financial and the material aspect, production will not also be possible. Of course, you know that production, trade can never be possible without money being involved. So capital contributes both financial and material resources for the production of goods and services. So this is the reason why we refer to this as the factors of production. They make production possible. They contribute to the production of goods and services available for the satisfaction of human wants. Okay, so let's just summarize what we have learned in today's class. We have the picture here that depicts the 4 factors of production. The first picture shows land as a factor of production, which includes all the gifts of nature and all natural resources not created by human effort. Remember, we looked at the different characteristics of land. As a free gift of nature, it's immobile. The reward is rent. It is not created by man. The second picture shows capital, which provides the money, the tools, equipment, machines, factories used in production. And we said the reward for capital is what? Interest. The reward for capital is interest. The third factor of production, which is labor, it brings about or it contributes the physical and the mental effort of man to make the production possible. It contributes both physical and the mental effort of man, and the reward for labor as a factor of production is wages and salaries. And we have the last of them all, which controls every other one, which is the entrepreneur. So the entrepreneur, that the business owners. The entrepreneurs are individuals who take the initiative to do what? To start a new business or bring a product to the market. They decide what to produce and how to produce, and they also make use of the other factors of production. They make use of land. They decide on what to use the land for. They provide the capital. They also provide the labor and ensure that the laborers are properly taken care of. So these are the 4 factors of production, and you can see how they all contribute to ensure that human beings, or the wants, the needs of humans, are satisfied. So before we go, let's take some questions from our exam guide to be sure that we've understood today's class. The first question says, the reward of land as a factor of production is dash. The reward of land. Remember, we looked at land as the first factor of production. Is it interest or profit or wage or rent or salaries? The answer is rent. Rent is the reward for land as a factor of production. The next question says, who among the following combines land, labor, and capital to manufacture goods? Remember, I made mention of one of the factors, making use of the other ones to make production possible. Is it entrepreneur or employee or marketer or merchant or salesman? The factor of production that combines land, labor, and capital to manufacture goods is entrepreneur. And we refer to them also as the risk bearer. We have another question. Another question says, the purpose of production is to dash. Remember, I made mention of this. The purpose of production. A, to satisfy consumers' wants, to lobby for sales, to produce for the rich, to give discounts, to advertise goods and services. What is the main purpose of production? The answer is A, to satisfy consumers' wants. The main purpose of production is for our wants and needs to be satisfied. The next question says, the total money provided by a person to start a business is known as dash. The total money provided by a person to start a business is known as dash. A, capital. B, liabilities. C, shares. D, assets. E, stock. The money provided by a person to start and run a business is referred to as capital. The answer is A, capital. Let's take the next question. It says, the reward of capital as a factor of production is dash. Remember, I said every factor of production has its reward. Is it salary? Is it profit? Is it interest? Is it wage? Is it rent? The reward for capital is interest. The answer is C, interest. The reward for capital. Remember, I said the reward for land is what? Rent. The reward for labor, wages and salaries. The reward for capital, interest. And the reward for an entrepreneur is profit. Okay, this is where we draw the curtain for today's lesson. I believe you have learned a lot from this, and you should be able to answer questions that might come out from this topic in your exams. See you in the next class. Bye.